Peru. Between 1995 and 1907, over 250,000 Peruvian women were sterilized as part of a program to fulfill President Fujimori's family planning goals, financed by the US. Although this campaign was called the Voluntary Surgical Contraception Campaign, many of these procedures were forced. In fact, women whose underweight children were on government food programs were threatened with the withholding of this food if they refused to be sterilized, and others were kidnapped from their families and forcibly sterilized. In a little over 2 years, 250,000 women were deeply traumatized. Most of them were poor and indigenous. Not all women survived the surgery due to poor hygiene in the local hospitals. At least 100 women from my area went to the clinic that day. We were promised medicine. A lorry took us to the clinic. We all arrived innocent and happy. Then we heard screams and I just ran, but the doors were locked so I could not escape. I was 3 months pregnant. The health center staff knew this. They still went ahead. When I woke up, I was sterilized against my will. The examples go on and on and on. In every less developed country, the UN's concern was not with development, health, or women's empowerment, but with reversing the unchecked growth of the world population. From the very beginning, the concept of a population explosion was a false alarm specifically designed to allow rich nations to pillage the resources of the poorer nations. And Kissinger? He simply laid out the protocols of Zion for modern times. Who is Kissinger really? He was born in 1923 in southern Germany, right at the cabal center of Bavaria. His full name? Heinz Alfred Kissinger. He claims to be Jewish, but his credentials show all the signs of Khazarian roots. His family name wasn't Kissinger, it was Loeb. The name Kissinger was adopted in 1817 by his great-great-grandfather, Meyer Loeb, after the Bavarian town of Bad Kissingen. The name Meyer Loeb struck a chord. Hadn't we seen that name before? Meyer Amschel Rothschild's great-grandfather's name was Loeb Rothschild. Meyer Rothschild, Loeb Rothschild, Meyer Loeb Kissinger. We wouldn't be surprised if one day the truth will be presented about Henry Kissinger being a Rothschild. In order to understand the UN for what it really is, the ultimate cabal monster, one must know about the countless NGOs that are connected, directly or indirectly, to the UN. NGO means non-governmental organization. It means they don't have to pay tax, as they are non-profit organizations. It doesn't matter if they make astronomical piles of money. All NGOs are tax-exempt under the Internal Revenue Code, Section 501(c). In this case, most of them are 501(c)(3)s and 501(c)(4)s. Not long ago, we believed NGOs do good things. Well, upon researching the NGOs set up by the UN and working for the UN, we were in for a rude awakening. We've already seen the United Nations Population Fund aiding and paying for the Chinese Communist government with its horrid population control policy. Then there's the Population Council, yet another non-profit organization aimed at eugenics and depopulation. Eugenics intends to improve the genetic quality of the human race. We all know where that led to in World War II. Isn't it remarkable that the Population Council actually presents itself as addressing critical health and development issues such as voluntary family planning and girl empowerment? Really? Let's have a closer look, shall we? The Population Council was founded in 1952 by John D. Rockefeller III. It addressed the problem of overpopulation, stating that modern civilization had reduced the operation of natural selection by saving more weak lives and enabling them to reproduce, resulting in a downward trend in genetic quality. That genetic quality had to be protected, and so the Population Council was set up to devote itself to reduce the fertility of the world population. Rockefeller became the organization's first president. He was succeeded by members of the American Eugenics Society. Early grants supported studies in embryonic development and paid for sterilization experiments on women with bad hereditary history. It was clear from the start that the Population Council had nothing to do with protecting women's health and safety. It had everything to do with the cabal's depopulation program. The intrauterine device they forced on millions of women in India, Pakistan, South Korea and Taiwan caused major side effects such as severe pains, protracted bleeding, pelvic inflammatory disease and perforated uteruses. Nonetheless, with the help of the national governments of those countries that were paid millions of dollars in blood money, the birth control measures continued without any care or compensation for the women in question. In 1969, the Population Council published an article entitled "Beyond Family Planning." The document offered legitimacy to, for instance, adding fertility control agents to water supplies in urban areas, temporary sterilization of all young women via time capsule contraceptives, and compulsory sterilization of men with 3 or more children. Once again, the Population Council actually presents itself as addressing critical health and development issues, such as voluntary family planning. Voluntary? Really? These are the kind of population control NGOs we are dealing with. There are 37 NGOs right now that deal with the overpopulation program. 37 NGOs worldwide advocating negative population growth, repeating over and over again the words sustainability, devastating effects, overpopulation, environment. Call it group hypnosis, call it brainwashing. You don't believe me? Here are just a few. Negative Population Growth, a non-profit membership organization that aims to educate the American public and political leaders about the devastating effects of overpopulation on the environment, natural resources, and the overall standard of living. They advocate for a significant reduction in current population numbers in the US. A significant reduction? How, for God's sake? The 10 Million Club Foundation. This Dutch foundation aims to bring about public awareness of the need to reduce the Netherlands' population significantly so as to create a truly sustainable society. Reduce the population of my country significantly? Excuse me? Rientro Dolce, an Italian association that concerns itself with overpopulation, environment and energy. Its name comes from Marco Panella's idea of a mild return to a world with 2 billion human beings. What? A mild return? What does that mean? killing the other 5.5 billion softly with a smile? Hugging them to death? Oh, and then there's Planned Parenthood. Yet another NGO that has our best interests at heart. The International Planned Parenthood Federation was founded in Brooklyn, New York in 1917 by Margaret Sanger as a birth control clinic. In 1942, the name Planned Parenthood was chosen. Planned Parenthood grew into a huge enterprise with more than 600 abortion clinics in the US alone. Every year, it is responsible for the abortion of approximately 350,000 babies. In several American states, abortion is allowed up to and including the moment of birth. Full-term abortion is the term coined for this event. The doctors at Planned Parenthood have no problems with this. On the contrary, on several occasions, medical staff were caught on hidden cameras selling body parts of aborted babies to third parties. Nurses admitted to knowing exactly how to turn the baby in its mother's womb so that the internal organs would not be harmed during the abortion, in order to harvest them after the procedure. They admitted the aborted babies were alive when their bodies were cut open to retrieve the organs, commissioned by well-paying third parties.
A lot of people want intact hearts these days because they're looking for specific nodes. Yesterday was the first time she said people wanted lungs. And then, like I said, always as many intact livers as possible. People just want
livers.
People want lower extremities too, which that's simple. I mean, that's easy. I don't know what they're doing with it. I guess they want muscle. But
Yeah, a dime a dozen.
I'm the medical director for the national office for all of the affiliates.
You know, I'm going to throw a number out. I would say it's probably anywhere from $30 to $100, depending on the facility and what's involved.
The $30 to $100 price, that's per specimen that we're talking about, right? Yeah.
Yes.
How much of a difference can that actually make if you know what's expected or what we need versus?
It makes a huge difference. I'd say a lot of people want liver, and for that reason, most providers will do this case under ultrasound guidance, so they'll know where they're putting their forceps. Kind of rate-limiting step of the procedure is calvarium. Calvarium, the head is basically the biggest part. Most of the other stuff can come out intact.
Right.
It's very rare to have a patient that doesn't have enough dilation to evacuate all the other
to bring the body cavity out intact and all that.
So then you're just kind of cognizant of where you put your brassipers. You try to intentionally go above and below the thorax so that, we've been very good at getting hard, long liver, because we know that, so I'm not going to crush that part. I'm going to basically crush below, I'm going to crush above, and I'm going to see if I can get it out intact. And with the calvarium, in general, some people will actually try to change the presentation so that it's not vertex, because when it's a vertex presentation, you never have enough dilation at the beginning of the case unless you have a real huge amount of dilation to deliver an intact calvarium. So if you do it starting from the breech presentation, there's dilation that happens as the case goes on, and often the last you can evacuate an intact calvarium. So I mean, there are certainly steps that can be taken.
So they can convert to breech, for example, at the start of the...
Exactly. Under ultrasound guidance, they can just change the presentation.
Federal abortion ban. is a law, and laws are up to interpretation. So if I say on day one I do not intend to do this, what ultimately happens doesn't matter.
Realistically, if we were to do an agreement with you guys, what do we think you could get? I mean, what do you feel like you could get?
Volume-wise?
Yeah,
okay.
on specifically liver tissue, because that's such an area of demand for us.
Right, so liver and what about intact specimens?
Oh, yeah, I mean, if you had intact cases, which we've done a lot, so we've sometimes shipped those back to our lab in its entirety.
So what would keep your lab happy? Like, what would make your lab happy?
Another 50 livers a week.
You can handle that?
Yeah.
Okay.
As you probably know, potentially, I mean, I think that one of the issues with neural tissue is so fragile. It's insanely fragile.
Right.
I was going to say is that I know we get requests for it's the hardest thing in the world to ship.
You do is the whole Calvarium.
That's it. Yeah, that's the easiest way. And I mean, we've actually had good success with that in the past. So
They're like, make sure the eyes are closed.
Yeah. Tell the lab it's coming. So don't open the box.
Yeah,
Oh God. You know what I mean? So whereas so many of the academic labs cannot fly like that. They're just not capable.
Why is that? I don't understand that.
It's almost like they don't want to know where it comes from. Like in that, where they're like, we need limbs, but no hands and feet need to be attached. And you're like,
They just want the long bones and they don't want to see that
they want you to take it all off. Like, make it so that we don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's like,
bone the chicken for me, and then
that's it.
and then I'll eat it.
But we
not
know what it is. I mean, but their lab.
So this goes to that whole stigma.
Oh,
that,
yeah. And their lab techs freak out and have meltdowns, and so it's just kind of like, I mean, I think you're either in the cause or you're not.
Yeah.
And if you're not in the cause, like, they don't need you around.
Get out.
They need champions, and if you're not a champion, you should go.
Yeah.
Because that's just, and I don't know, the clinics, they're very guarded, as they should be.
Yeah.
And who do they let in their house? They want champions in their house, right?
Hello, I'm Cecile Richards, President of Planned Parenthood Federation of America. I want to be really clear. The allegation that Planned Parenthood profits in any way from tissue donation is not true.
What would you expect for intact tissue? What sort of compensation? What sort of...
Well, why don't you start by telling me what you're used to paying?
Don't lowball it. Tell me what you really...
$75 a specimen.
Oh, that's way too low. Really, that's way too low. I want to keep you happy.
I've been at places that did 50 too. But see, we're not in it for the money. Now, this is for tissue that you actually take, not just the tissue that the person volunteers that you can't find anything.
Exactly.
And here's another thought: is we can talk about specimen as per specimen per case, or per procured tissue sample, which would be so that if we're able to get a liver thymus pair. Maybe that is $75 per specimen, and so that's for for liver thymus pair, and that's $150. Versus if we can get liver thymus, brain hemisphere, and all that, then and so that protects us so that we're not paying for what we can't use. I mean it also.
I want a Lamborghini. That's how I want a Lamborghini.
Don't we all, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Planned Parenthood has been receiving millions from, for instance, the American government, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Buffett Foundation, the Ford Foundation, the Turner Foundation, and many others. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation gave no less than $89.5 million to Planned Parenthood. Why? To kill unborn babies? Why the heck do they call this charity? The most merciful thing that the large family does to one of its infant members is to kill it. The most urgent problem today is how to limit and discourage the over-fertility of the mentally and physically defective. A marriage license shall in itself give husband and wife only the right to a common household and not the right to parenthood. No woman shall have the legal right to bear a child, and no man shall have the right to become a father without a permit for parenthood. We don't want the word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population.
But from my view, I believe that there should be no more babies.
I admire Margaret Sanger enormously. Her courage, her tenacity, her vision.
President Trump ended the US funding of Planned Parenthood in 2019. Oh, and just as we started editing this part 6, we received news that Henry Kissinger is one of 11 high-ranked officials who have just been removed from the Pentagon Defense Policy Board, effective immediately. Thank you, President Trump. We could talk about the UN forever, its brilliant business constructs, its evil deeds, and its hypnotic words to put up a smokescreen to divert the public from seeing the truth of its real threefold purpose: pillaging the resources of less developed countries, money laundering, and population control, better known as the depopulation program. The money laundering will be clarified next. We promise you, when we're done with the UN and its NGOs, you will never donate another dollar ever again to any one of them. Let's continue with more crime, fraud, and the front man of this entire scheme in part 7.